My own son left me alone on my birthday in a nursing home. 1 week later, I won the lottery and he came back, begging. The digital glow of the phone screen illuminated Elara's weary face in the dim, institutional light of her nursing home room. Outside, the early spring twilight was deepening, painting the window a mournful indigo. It was her 78th birthday, a milestone that, for most, was a cause for celebration, a day to be cocooned in the warmth of family and cherished memories. For Elara, it was merely another stark reminder of her profound solitude, a day indistinguishable from countless others, save for the bitter sting of expectation unfulfilled. The message, brief and devoid of warmth, vibrated on the screen, a digital slap in the face from her only son, Kalen. Happy B-Day, Mom. Bit tied up. Morgana and I decided on a last-minute trip to the Maldives. Saw a great deal. We'll call when we're back. Don't worry about dinner. Elara read the words, not once, but twice, allowing their full, casual cruelty to sink in. Her heart, which had endured countless disappointments over the years, felt not a searing pain, nor the familiar surge of tears that had often accompanied past slights. Instead, a chilling emptiness settled deep within her, a profound, almost surgical detachment. 78 years. And on this, her special day, her only son, the flesh of her flesh, had chosen a spontaneous luxury vacation over a brief visit to his aging mother. He hadn't even bothered with a phone call, opting for a perfunctory text message that felt colder than the winter air outside. He had left her alone, not just on her birthday, but in this nursing home, a place he and his wife, Morgana, had so enthusiastically pushed her into, claiming it would lighten their burden. The irony of those words, echoed through the quiet halls of her memory, was a bitter, indigestible pill. He had spoken of burdens, yet had been the heaviest burden of all, a financial and emotional drain that had left her parched. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched Elara's lips, a smile utterly devoid of joy, yet pregnant with a newfound resolve. It was the smile of a woman reaching a definitive end, a final, unyielding line in the sand. For decades, she had been a wellspring of generosity, a bottomless pit of financial support for Kalen and Morgana, convinced that her money might one day buy her the love and respect she so desperately craved. She had poured her considerable inheritance, Arthur's legacy, into their lives, hoping to nurture a bond that perpetually remained out of reach. But the well had run dry, not of funds, but of hope, of the foolish illusion that they would ever truly see her, beyond the gleam of her wealth. This was it. The absolute, undeniable, final straw. The casual cruelty of their abandonment, the stark revelation of her worthlessness in their eyes compared to a great deal on a luxury trip, ignited a spark within her. Her long-simmering resentment, a quiet companion through lonely years, transformed into a cold, unyielding determination. The time for sorrow was over. The time for action had begun. To understand the full weight of that single text message, one had to trace back the intricate web of financial dependence and emotional neglect that had defined Elara's relationship with her son for decades. Elara, a woman of refined tastes and a gentle spirit, had been widowed young. Her beloved husband, Arthur, had been a titan of industry, a man who built his empire from the ground up through shrewd investment and unwavering dedication. His dying wish had been for Elara to live a life of comfort and joy, free from financial worry, and to ensure their son, Kalen, inherited not just wealth, but values, integrity, diligence, and a sense of responsibility. Arthur had always spoken of Kalen learning the ropes, of eventually taking over the family trust with a keen eye and a steady hand. But Kalen, it seemed, had only inherited the former. From the moment Kalen had graduated from university, a degree in business, which he rarely put to use beyond vague pronouncements of consulting, Elara had become his unwitting financial safety net, and then, his primary benefactor. His early attempts at independent living were fleeting, marked by a succession of startup ventures that invariably fizzled out, each failure swiftly cushioned by Elara's quiet intervention. She would receive frantic calls, veiled hints of impending ruin, and then, inevitably, she would transfer the necessary funds to cover overdue rents or business losses, always with a hopeful sigh that this would be the last time. She truly believed she was helping him find his footing. When Kalen announced his engagement to Morgana, a woman whose beauty was matched only by her ambition and discerning eye for luxury, Elara had felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps marriage would mature him, provide him with a sense of purpose. But Morgana, a former interior decorator with a penchant for the opulent and a deep-seated aversion to frugality, only amplified Kalen's financial dependence. Elara had not only paid for their extravagant wedding, held in a sprawling country estate that boasted a guest list far exceeding Kalen's modest income, but had also provided the hefty down payment for their first home. It was a suburban mansion far beyond their nascent incomes, chosen by Morgana for its potential and prestige. A fresh start, Elara had called it, her heart swelling with maternal pride, believing she was simply laying the foundation for her son's happiness. The mortgage payments, however, quickly proved burdensome for Kalen's sporadic employment in vague consulting roles and Morgana's infrequent shifts. So, Elara had quietly, steadily, taken over the monthly mortgage payments. For nearly 2 decades, she had ensured their grand house remained theirs, shielding them from the harsh realities of financial responsibility, often sacrificing her own desires for travel or personal indulgences to maintain their illusion of affluence. She had watched with a mixture of sadness and resignation as they furnished it with designer pieces, hosted lavish parties, and cultivated a social circle built on appearances, all funded by her. Then came the cars. Kalen had always had an affinity for luxury vehicles, a new model seemingly appearing in his driveway every few years, each more ostentatious than the last. The sleek, powerful sports car, the latest SUV for Morgana, Elara had financed them all, the lease payments automatically debited from her accounts, barely a thought given to the substantial sums. She remembered Kalen once proudly showing her his brand new convertible, a gleaming symbol of his perceived success, bought without a word to her. A week later, the financing agreement arrived in the mail, requiring her signature as guarantor. A quiet sigh had escaped her as she signed, lost in the grand expanse of his self-satisfaction. It was always like this, a fait accompli, followed by her quiet, resigned compliance. The grandchildren, Leo and Chloe, were the apples of Elara's eye, a source of profound, albeit often unfulfilled, yearning. She adored them, longing for genuine connection, for the sticky hugs and whispered secrets of grandmotherhood. Instead, her interactions were often limited to supervised visits at Kalen and Morgana's convenience, where their parents would hover, their eyes darting to her handbag as if expecting a monetary offering, subtly reminding the children of grandma's treats. The children, too, quickly learned that their grandmother was the source of grand gifts, expensive toys, designer clothes, and, most significantly, their education. Leo and Chloe attended the prestigious Oakwood Academy, a private school renowned for its rigorous curriculum and exorbitant tuition fees, all exclusively covered by Elara. She'd paid for every book, every field trip, every extracurricular activity, ensuring they had every opportunity, even if their parents seemed to view it as simply another entitlement, a baseline expectation rather than a gift. Elara had once suggested a more modest school, hoping to instill some sense of real-world value, but Kalen and Morgana had dismissed her with patronizing smiles, insisting only the best for our children, mother, and you know how important education is. Elara's generosity wasn't just limited to grand purchases. It seeped into every aspect of their lives. When Kalen's credit card statements ballooned from lavish dinners at exclusive restaurants, designer clothes for Morgana, and exotic getaways, Elara would discreetly pay them off, a quiet act of rescue, hoping to spare him the embarrassment of debt, though he rarely showed any. Holidays were always funded by her, grand trips to exotic locations where Elara was often an afterthought, relegated to the role of financier rather than cherished family member. She recalled one Christmas in Aspen, a picturesque mountain retreat. Kalen and Morgana had left her alone in the sprawling chalet while they went skiing, claiming she'd be more comfortable by the fire, dear, despite her gentle protests that she enjoyed the crisp mountain air. She had spent the afternoon watching the snow fall, a profound loneliness settling over her, the only sound the crackling logs in the fireplace echoing her own isolation. The emotional neglect was a constant, gnawing pain, a silent companion in her quiet life. Visits were perfunctory, often punctuated by thinly veiled requests for money or complaints about their stressful lives. Birthday calls were brief, Mother's Day forgotten more often than not. Elara yearned for genuine conversation, for shared laughter, for the simple comfort of being seen and appreciated for who she was, not for what she provided. Instead, she was a walking ATM, a convenient resource to be tapped whenever needed, and conveniently ignored when not. Morgana, in particular, was skilled at subtle slights, dismissing Elara's opinions with a wave of her manicured hand, excluding her from family decisions with casual disregard, and openly resenting her presence, especially after Elara's health had begun to decline slightly, necessitating a discussion about her future living arrangements. "It's for your own good, Mother," Kalen had insisted, his voice laced with feigned concern. "We can't possibly provide the 24/7 care you need. It would be too much of a burden on our busy lives." The words had stung, stripping Elara of her dignity, making her feel like an inconvenience rather than a beloved parent. She knew, deep down, that it was not about her care, but about freeing Kalen and Morgana from any perceived obligation or intrusion on their lavish, self-absorbed lives. But even through all this, Elara had held on, clutching to the fragile hope that one day, they would see her, truly see her, beyond the gleam of her wealth. That hope, a persistent, tender thing, had finally shattered with Kalen's birthday text. It was the moment the illusion irrevocably broke, revealing the cold, hard truth: her love, her sacrifice, her very being, meant nothing to them compared to their own fleeting desires and material comforts. And in that moment of profound realization, a new strength, cold and resolute, had begun to bloom within her, a strength she hadn't known she possessed. The following morning, Elara rose with a clarity she hadn't felt in years. The air in her room, usually heavy with the scent of institutional cleaning products and lingering sadness, felt crisp, almost electric, charged with a new purpose. She ate her breakfast with a methodical calm, each spoonful a deliberate act of self-care, a quiet assertion of her own needs. Then, she reached for her phone, not to check for a belated call from Kalen, but to initiate a new chapter, to sever the ties that had bound her to their insatiable demands. Her first call was to Mr. Henderson, her long-standing estate lawyer, a man who had handled Arthur's will and Elara's finances for decades. Mr. Henderson was a kind, astute man in his late 60s, with keen eyes that missed little. He knew the family dynamics better than anyone, having quietly observed Kalen and Morgana's escalating extravagance and Elara's quiet suffering, often with a sympathetic sigh during their quarterly meetings. He had often gently advised Elara to consider putting stricter controls on the trust, but she had always demurred, hoping for a change that never came. "Mr. Henderson," Elara's voice was steady, unwavering, "I need to make some significant changes to my financial arrangements. Effective immediately, I want all direct payments to Kalen's accounts ceased. That includes the mortgage payments for his house on Elmwood Lane. The car leases for both his sports car and Morgana's SUV, terminate them. All credit card bills that I have been covering for them, whether directly or indirectly, are no longer my responsibility. And the tuition for Leo and Chloe at Oakwood Academy, please inform the school that I will no longer be covering their fees." Mr. Henderson listened in silence, a faint hum of surprise escaping him as Elara listed each item with unwavering resolve. He had anticipated a day like this, had perhaps even hoped for it, but he had never truly believed Elara would go through with such a drastic measure. "Elara, are you certain? This is a substantial change. It will have significant repercussions for Kalen and Morgana." "I am entirely certain, Mr. Henderson," she replied, her voice unwavering, each word a stone falling into place. "For years, I have poured my resources into them, hoping to foster a loving family. All I have received in return is neglect and exploitation. This is not a rash decision, it is a necessary one, long overdue. I want every single financial tie severed. Completely. Without their knowledge, for now. Let them discover it on their own terms. Mr. Henderson, recognizing the unshakable resolve in her tone, the quiet strength that had replaced her usual gentle weariness, simply said, "Understood, Elara. I will begin the process immediately. It may take a few days for all the auto payments to be officially stopped, and for the relevant parties to be notified." He closed the call with a rare, genuine smile, a hint of admiration in his eyes. Next, she called her bank. She spoke to the branch manager, outlining her directives with calm precision. She revoked Kalen's and Morgana's access to any of her accounts, removed them as beneficiaries on any trusts where they might have had conditional access, and solidified her sole control over every asset. The bank manager, a young woman who seemed slightly taken aback by Elara's firm directives, assured her everything would be processed expeditiously. Elara even instructed her to set up a new, separate account, to be managed exclusively by herself, into which all future income and investments would flow. A new beginning, financially and personally. As the days turned into a week, Elara felt a lightness she hadn't experienced in decades. The weight of obligation, the silent burden of their financial dependency, had begun to lift. Her mind, once consumed by worries about their next demand, was now free to wander, to explore. She started spending her time differently. She rediscovered her love for literature, devouring historical novels and poetry collections. She subscribed to a gardening magazine, finding quiet pleasure in the vibrant images and practical advice, even starting a small herb garden on her windowsill. She even joined a weekly bridge game with some of the other residents, something she had always put off, citing family obligations that rarely materialized. The other residents, surprised by her sudden vivacity, welcomed her into their fold, and Elara found herself laughing, genuinely laughing, for the first time in what felt like forever. Meanwhile, the first subtle tremors of their crumbling financial empire began to ripple through Kalen and Morgana's perfectly curated lives, though they remained blissfully unaware of Elara's precise hand in it. Morgana's credit card, which Elara had always paid off meticulously, was suddenly declined at a high-end boutique, a place where she was a regular and highly valued customer. She tried again, then a third time, her face reddening with a mixture of embarrassment and indignation as the sales assistant politely informed her, "Insufficient funds, madam." Morgana, used to a limitless spending spree, simply scoffed, "There must be a mistake. My mother always covers this." She called the bank, confused, only to be told the card was indeed maxed out and the last payment hadn't gone through. She dismissed it as a system glitch, something Elara would surely fix with a phone call, perhaps just a temporary oversight on her part. A few days later, Kalen received a curt email from the car dealership. His latest luxury sports car lease payment was overdue. He frowned, running a hand through his perfectly coiffed hair. "Must be an error," he muttered to Morgana, "Mom always handles this." He tried to call Elara, but her phone went straight to voicemail. Probably just forgotten to top up her account, Morgana mused, casually flipping through a fashion magazine. "She's getting old, you know, a bit forgetful sometimes." They were annoyed, certainly, but not yet alarmed. Their mother was a constant, an endless source of funds. A temporary glitch, nothing more, easily remedied once she remembered her duties. Then came the letter from Oakwood Academy. It was a polite but firm notice that the tuition for Leo and Chloe had not been paid for the current term and that if the arrears were not settled within 7 days, their enrollment would be suspended. Kalen crumpled the letter in his hand, his initial annoyance giving way to a flicker of genuine concern, a cold knot forming in his stomach. "This is getting ridiculous," he fumed, pacing their opulent living room. "What is Mom playing at? This is serious." He tried calling her again, repeatedly, even texting, but still, no answer. A creeping unease began to replace their casual dismissal. The ultimate blow came a few days later, just as Kalen and Morgana were beginning to feel a distinct, chilling dread. A thick envelope arrived from their mortgage lender. Inside was a notice of payment overdue, a warning of default, and a stern, unambiguous statement about foreclosure proceedings if the situation wasn't rectified immediately. The sheer weight of the mortgage, now truly their responsibility, hit them like a physical blow. Their faces, usually radiating smug self-satisfaction and effortless privilege, blanched, their carefully constructed world beginning to crack around them. The system glitch narrative crumbled into dust. This was no mistake. This was deliberate. Someone had deliberately stopped the flow of money, the very lifeblood of their existence. And there was only one person who could have done it. Their fury was a tangible thing, a simmering rage that quickly boiled over into panicked accusations. "She's gone senile." Morgana shrieked, her perfectly coiffed hair now slightly disheveled as she paced their opulent living room, her designer dress suddenly feeling like a straitjacket. "She's trying to ruin us. After everything we've done for her. The sacrifices we've made." Kalen's jaw was clenched, his face a mask of disbelief and betrayal. "She wouldn't dare. She knows what we've given up for her. The burden of her care, this is her way of punishing us for putting her in that home." Their self-pity was boundless, their entitlement absolute, entirely blind to the decades of their own exploitation. They saw themselves as victims, not perpetrators. Just as their panic reached a fever pitch, a strange, almost unbelievable piece of news filtered through the quiet halls of Elara's nursing home. Elara had won the lottery. Not a small sum, a modest prize that might offer a temporary respite, but a truly life-altering jackpot, $50 million. The news spread like wildfire among the staff and residents, buzzing through the dining room and quiet lounges. Elara, however, received it with a quiet, almost detached calm. The money, while astonishing, felt almost secondary to the profound sense of liberation that had already begun to blossom within her. She was free. Free from obligation, free from expectation, free from the crushing weight of their ingratitude. The lottery was merely an unexpected dividend to a freedom she had already claimed. The news of Elara's lottery win reached Kalen and Morgana through a frantic phone call from a family friend, delivered with a mix of awe, thinly veiled envy, and a dash of gossip. Their fury instantly morphed into a frantic, desperate hope, a greedy glint entering their eyes. The lottery win. This changed everything. It wasn't about Elara punishing them, it was about her wealth multiplying exponentially. They could fix everything, and then some. Their mother had hit the jackpot, and they were her only family. Surely, she would share. She had to. Their panic shifted, now fueled by the fear of losing out on an even grander fortune. They needed to get to her, immediately. Begging, if necessary. Promises, if required. This was their salvation. The doorbell to Elara's nursing home room rang, a jarring, insistent sound that shattered the morning's quietude. It was barely 9 a.m., and Kalen and Morgana stood on the threshold, their faces a chaotic canvas of manufactured concern, barely concealed panic, and blatant avarice. Kalen clutched a bouquet of hastily bought, generic roses, their petals already beginning to droop, a pitiful symbol of his last-minute attempt at contrition. Morgana wore a strained, overly sweet smile, her eyes darting nervously around the modest room, clearly disappointed by its humble dimensions, a stark contrast to the opulence she envisioned. "Mother! Oh, Mother, thank heavens you're all right." Morgana rushed forward, attempting an embrace, but Elara subtly shifted, creating an imperceptible barrier that blocked the false show of affection. Kalen, meanwhile, launched into a flurry of dramatic apologies, his voice laced with feigned worry. "We've been so worried. You haven't been answering your phone, and we couldn't reach you. And these issues with our accounts, they've been so stressful. We thought you might be unwell, perhaps even experiencing some cognitive decline." He added the last phrase with a practiced sigh, hoping to plant a seed of doubt about her mental faculties. Elara merely gestured for them to sit, her composure unwavering, radiating a quiet authority they had never seen. "I am perfectly well, Kalen. And Morgana. And I have been answering my phone." "Perhaps you were calling the wrong number," she replied, her voice calm, almost serene, yet it carried an undertone of steel that made Kalen shift uncomfortably in his seat. The wilting roses seemed to mock his pathetic efforts. Mother, about these financial disruptions, Kalen began, his voice dropping to a low, conspiratorial tone, as if they were allies discussing a shared problem. We've been so confused. My credit cards, the house payment, even the children's tuition. Everything seems to have stopped. It's caused us considerable distress, I must say. Surely, there's been a misunderstanding? A bank error, perhaps? You know how these things can happen with automated payments. He feigned ignorance, his eyes searching hers for a flicker of doubt, a hint of the easily manipulated woman he remembered. Morgana chimed in, her voice thick with practiced pathos. Yes, Mother, it's been dreadful. Poor Leo and Chloe are so worried about their school. They adore Oakwood Academy. Imagine the shame for them, having to leave their friends, their excellent education, it would crush their spirits. She dabbed at the corner of her eye with a pristine tissue, though no tears appeared, her gaze fixed on Elara's face, expecting the usual capitulation. Elara listened, her expression unreadable. For years, she had yearned for genuine affection, for a warmth that never came. All she received were thinly veiled demands, grudging visits, and a dismissive attitude that sliced deeper than any insult. Now, sitting before them, seeing their transparent performance, she felt not anger, but a profound, liberating clarity. The pity she once held for their moral failings had vanished, replaced by a quiet strength. There has been no misunderstanding, Elara stated, her voice clear and resonant, each word falling like a hammer on an anvil. And no bank error. I instructed Mr. Henderson, my lawyer, to cease all financial support to you both. Every payment, every bill, every lease. It was a deliberate, conscious decision. Made by me. A stunned silence filled the room, heavy and suffocating. Kalen's jaw dropped, the forced concern draining from his face, replaced by raw disbelief and a horrifying realization. Morgana's eyes widened, her carefully constructed facade crumbling, her mouth agape. Mother! How could you? Kalen finally exploded, his voice trembling with genuine outrage, a sense of profound betrayal ringing in his tone. After everything. We're your family. Your only son. Do you have any idea the position you put us in? Our house, our cars, the children's future, you're destroying everything we've worked for. You're ruining us. Destroying everything? Elara's voice remained calm, but it held a new, chilling edge, an undeniable authority. Or perhaps, Kalen, I am merely allowing you to finally stand on your own 2 feet. Something you have never truly done. She looked directly at him, her gaze unwavering, seeing not her son, but a perpetual child trapped in a man's body. For years, I have been your personal ATM. I paid for your extravagant wedding, your suburban mansion, your luxury cars, your exotic holidays, your ballooning credit card debts, your children's elite education. What did I ask for in return, Kalen? Respect. Love. A little bit of genuine care. A true connection, not just a transactional one. And what did I receive? She paused, letting the silence hang heavy, broken only by Morgana's ragged breathing. Perfunctory visits. Grudging phone calls. Requests for more money, always more, disguised as urgent needs. You resented my presence, even as you bled me dry. You pushed me into this nursing home, claiming it was for my own good, when in reality, it was to lighten your burden, to free you from the inconvenience of my aging presence. And on my 78th birthday, a day when any loving child would make an effort, you chose a luxury trip to the Maldives and sent a dismissive text message, as if I were an afterthought, an obligation to be ticked off a list. Morgana, regaining her composure, tried a different tactic, her voice suddenly sweet and solicitous. Mother, that's unfair. We've always been there for you. We love you. We have busy lives. And you're so comfortable here, aren't you? We thought you'd understand, dear. It was just a small oversight, a last-minute deal. She lowered her voice, trying to evoke sympathy, her gaze now fixed on the real prize. And now, with the lottery. $50 million, Mother. Think of what we could do together. We could live in unimaginable luxury, truly. We could buy a bigger house, travel the world, with you, of course. You could buy yourself an entire wing here, or a private nurse, anything you desire. We could finally be a real family, with no worries ever again. The desperation in her voice was palpable, a thinly veiled plea for immediate access to the new fortune. Elara's eyes flickered with a faint amusement at Morgana's sudden, transparent pivot from victimhood to avarice. Ah, yes. The lottery. It does seem to have sharpened your interest in my well-being, doesn't it, Morgana? A sudden shift from cognitive decline to unimaginable luxury. Her gaze hardened, unwavering. Let me be absolutely clear. The lottery money is mine. Every single cent. And it will be used for me. For my comfort, for my peace of mind, for the life I choose to live, free from your demands. Free from your grasping hands. Kaylin's face contorted in disbelief, a raw, ugly anger rising to the surface. But, Mother. We're your only family. You can't just cut us off. What about your grandchildren? Leo and Chloe will be devastated. You're destroying their future. His voice rose, a mix of anger and pathetic pleading, entirely devoid of any genuine concern for the children's well-being beyond their elite schooling. My grandchildren, Elara said softly, her voice filled with a genuine sadness that pierced the air. I love them dearly. And if they grow up to be as materialistic and ungrateful as their parents, then perhaps this is a lesson they need to learn, too. The world does not owe them a lavish lifestyle simply because their grandmother once had money. They will learn the value of hard work, of self-reliance, of humility. She looked at Kaylin, her eyes piercing him, seeing him for the first time, stripped bare of his pretenses. You call yourselves my family. Yet, you have treated me with less respect than a stranger. You have taken, and taken, and taken, without ever giving anything of substance in return. You have never seen me as a mother, Kaylin, only as a bank. Well, the bank is now closed. Permanently. She stood up slowly, her posture regal despite her age, radiating an aura of unbreakable resolve. My decision is final. You will not receive another penny from me. Not for your mortgage, not for your cars, not for your lavish lifestyle. And certainly not for my lottery winnings. You will learn, for the first time in your lives, what it means to be truly independent. You will learn what it means to earn your own way. Kaylin and Morgana stared at her, their faces pale with shock and dawning horror. All their tactics, the feigned concern, the emotional blackmail, the appeals to family, the transparent greed, had failed. Elara, the gentle, accommodating mother, had transformed into an unyielding force. She had spoken, not with anger or bitterness, but with the quiet, devastating power of truth. They were defeated, their empire of borrowed luxury crumbling before their very eyes. They had come begging, but they would leave with nothing but the crushing weight of their newfound reality. Kaylin and Morgana stumbled out of Elara's nursing home, their grand plans for the lottery winnings shattered, their faces a ghastly shade of white. The roses Kaylin clutched felt like ashes in his hand, a mockery of his failed attempt at reconciliation. The silence in their luxury SUV on the drive home was thick with shock and bitter recrimination, each glance at the other filled with blame. She's truly gone mad. Morgana finally hissed, her voice trembling with raw fury, her perfectly coiffed hair now truly disheveled. $50 million, and she won't give us a cent. After everything we've done for her. The years of listening to her endless stories, the forced visits, the burden of her care. Her mind was already racing, calculating the immediate impact of Elara's decree. The credit card bills, the car payments, the mortgage, all of it now their responsibility. And they had nothing saved. Their entire financial structure had been built on Elara's endless generosity, a house of cards that had just been blown away. Kalen, usually quick to anger, was unusually quiet, a cold dread settling in his stomach. He pictured the looming foreclosure notice, the repossession warnings for the cars. Their lavish lifestyle, built on a foundation of sand, was about to collapse. The prestige of Oakwood Academy, the envy of their friends, the shimmering facade of their perfect life, it would all disappear. He imagined the whispers, the knowing glances, the schadenfreude of those who had always secretly envied their effortless wealth, now watching their downfall. The humiliation would be unbearable. Over the next few weeks, the consequences were swift and brutal. The mortgage company initiated foreclosure proceedings, their calls growing increasingly insistent and threatening. Letters from the car dealerships arrived, demanding immediate payment for overdue leases, followed by curt notices of repossession. The credit card companies called relentlessly, their automated messages and live agents equally unforgiving. Kalen and Morgana, who had never truly worked consistently or managed their own finances, found themselves drowning in a sea of debt, their carefully constructed world dissolving around them. They tried to borrow money from friends, but their reputation as spendthrifts who never repaid debts quickly became apparent. Their successful consulting businesses, which primarily existed to justify Elara's allowances, were exposed as hollow shells, built on borrowed time and money. They were forced to sell Morgana's designer bags, Kalen's expensive watches, and various other luxury items, but it was a mere drop in the ocean compared to what they owed. Each sale was a fresh wound to their pride, a public admission of their financial ruin. The most humiliating blow came when Leo and Chloe were officially suspended from Oakwood Academy. The children, bewildered and upset by the sudden upheaval, had to be pulled out and enrolled in a local public school, a stark contrast to their previous elite education. The social fall for Kalen and Morgana was precipitous. Their friends, who had flocked to their lavish parties and benefited from their generosity, which was, in reality, Elara's generosity, suddenly became scarce. The invitations stopped. They were no longer the golden couple, but a cautionary tale, whispered about behind cupped hands. While Kalen and Morgana spiraled into a vortex of panic, recrimination, and bitter arguments, Elara was blooming. The nursing home, which had once felt like a prison of her son's making, now felt like a sanctuary, a quiet haven she had chosen to enrich. She hired a private chef to prepare gourmet meals tailored to her taste, a small indulgence with her newfound wealth, enjoying fresh, vibrant dishes after years of institutional food. She commissioned a local artist to paint a vibrant mural on one of her room's walls, transforming it into a personal haven filled with the colors of a Venetian landscape she dreamed of visiting. She reconnected with old friends, women from her bridge club and book group, whom she had often neglected due to Kalen and Morgana's incessant demands. She took a trip to Italy, a lifelong dream, accompanied by a kindly and engaging private nurse, a genuine companion who delighted in her joy. She explored ancient ruins, savored authentic pasta in sun-drenched piazzas, and watched the gondolas glide along the canals, genuinely enjoying the freedom and beauty around her. For the first time, her money was funding her happiness, her dreams, not someone else's extravagant and unfulfilling desires. The profound loneliness that had plagued her for years began to dissipate, replaced by a quiet joy and a profound sense of self-worth. Months passed. The seasons changed, bringing with them a new chapter for Elara and a harsh, undeniable reality for Kalen and Morgana. Elara, now 79, was a woman transformed. Her eyes, once shadowed with sorrow and resignation, now sparkled with life, reflecting an inner peace she had long sought. She had established a charitable foundation in her late husband's name, focusing on elderly care and financial literacy for young adults, a poignant nod to her own past struggles and the lessons she had learned. She invested wisely, ensuring her newfound wealth would serve a purpose beyond mere indulgence, creating a legacy of genuine good. She continued to live in the nursing home, but it was now a choice, a place of comfort and convenience, not a place of abandonment. She hosted small, elegant tea parties for her friends, enjoyed daily walks in the flourishing garden, and even took up painting, something she had always wanted to do but never had the time or emotional space for. Her canvases, filled with vibrant colors, mirrored the vibrancy of her rediscovered spirit. She had found true contentment, not in the hollow company of her ungrateful son, but in her own strength, her self-reliance, and the genuine connections she had forged with others. She learned that true love and respect could not be bought but had to be earned, and that the most important person to show loyalty and compassion to was oneself. Kaylin and Morgana, stripped of their safety net, were forced to confront the harsh consequences of their choices. Their suburban mansion was repossessed, their luxury car seized. They moved into a cramped, rented apartment in a less desirable part of town, a stark and humiliating contrast to their former opulence. Kaylin, for the first time in his life, had to take a full-time, steady job, a sales position in a mid-level company, where he had to work hard, meet quotas, and answer to others, a bitter pill for his entitled nature. Morgana, too, found part-time work, cleaning houses, a far cry from her interior decorating days, her hands now calloused from real labor. Their once glittering social circle had vanished, their pride shattered. They were forced to learn to budget, to live within their means, and to take responsibility for their own lives, a painful but necessary education. Leo and Chloe, though initially resentful and confused by their sudden change in circumstances, slowly began to adapt to their new, less privileged existence, learning the value of hard work and humility that their parents had never taught them. They occasionally called Elara, not asking for money, but sharing small details of their new school, their voices tinged with a newfound respect, a quiet acknowledgement of her wisdom. Elara, in turn, offered them kindness and quiet encouragement, always maintaining her boundaries, but never completely closing the door to genuine connection, should it ever truly emerge from the ashes of their past. Elara's story became a quiet legend among the nursing home staff and residents. A testament to resilience, to justice, and to the powerful realization that one's worth is not defined by the demands of others, but by the strength of one's own spirit. She had traded a life of silent suffering for one of vibrant freedom, proving that it is never too late to reclaim one's dignity and build a life filled with genuine purpose and joy. The lottery win was merely the catalyst. The true victory was Elara's courageous decision to finally choose herself, to prioritize her own well-being after decades of self-sacrifice. Love and respect, she had learned, could not be purchased with endless generosity, but had to be earned through mutual regard. And sometimes, the greatest act of self-love is to close the well for those who only ever saw you as a resource, allowing both parties to finally find their true path. Elara's story is a powerful reminder that sometimes, the greatest act of love is to love yourself first. It teaches us that true family is built on respect and genuine affection, not on financial dependency or selfish demands. What Elara experienced, sadly, is not uncommon. Many people face similar situations of emotional and financial exploitation from those they love. If you were touched by Elara's journey from quiet despair to triumphant freedom, please let us know in the comments below. Have you ever faced a similar situation of ingratitude or exploitation from family members? What steps did you take? Or, if you were in Elara's shoes, what would you have done differently? Share your thoughts and experiences. Your insights can truly help others navigating similar challenges. Don't forget to like this video if you found Elara's story inspiring, and subscribe to our channel for more stories of justice, resilience, and life lessons that will make you think. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our next powerful narrative. Thank you for watching, and remember, your worth is invaluable, and your peace is priceless.